have your designation?
I do.
Okay. I don't. I never do I?
Well, think about what happens in Alien, and then come up with one for that, because this is basically the same thing.
There's some differences.
There's some differences, yes.
I think there's enough differences, and there's some interesting allusions to other things. Well, we'll get into it. Before we do that, Kenny, guess what I've been playing?
Ooh.
Now you have a hint. I gave you a hint recently.
Oh, okay. Based on our conversation from the other day, I'm guessing it's a Bond game.
It is, yeah. It is
All right.
It is a Nintendo 64 James Bond game.
A Nintendo 64 Bond game.
Sure.
Are you playing The World Is Not Enough?
Actually, yeah, that is the one I'm playing.
Bang! Damn, I'm good.
You think it would be GoldenEye, right? Everyone would go to GoldenEye first.
Which is why I knew that's not what the answer was.
I mean, I've been messing around a little bit with GoldenEye as well, let's be clear. But no, dude, I picked up... So I had the PlayStation version of The World Is Not Enough. That game is garbage trash, garbage trash junk. And so I was like, oh, okay. 64 version's got to be the same. No, 64 version's a completely different game. Plays a lot more like GoldenEye. Not exactly, but much closer to GoldenEye than
makes sense
than the PlayStation version, and doesn't look like atrocious garbage like the PlayStation version of that game does. Yeah, so I found it at a local game store because I'm trying to round out my Bond collection.
All right.
I think now that I have the 64 version of World Is Not Enough, I think I'm missing of like modern games, as in games that have come out from GoldenEye to present day. I am missing 007 Racing, 007 Legends,
all right,
which I hear is trash.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
And From Russia with Love.
Really? Wow, you haven't gotten that one yet, huh?
Haven't gotten that one. I don't know why. You know what? Honestly, I'm a little picky with the condition I pick up games like that in. Like I have GoldenEye Rogue Agent. That one I'm not. I didn't super care about the way it looked, but like for some reason I want like a good copy of From Russia with Love.
Hey, it's fine.
Yeah, haven't even played that one.
Which one's the one that had Willem Dafoe as the bad guy?
That is Everything or Nothing, which is
Everything or Nothing. That's what it was. Yeah,
which is on its way. That was an eBay.
Oh, okay.
That was an eBay auction I won.
Nice.
For like $1.30.
Damn.
And
man,
then $4 shipping. So
of course, but like still, damn man, less than $6 for that game. That was full price when it first fucking came out.
I know.
You know?
I can't imagine the seller is happy that I won the bid, like the auction. Like, but I got the price up from where it was when I found it. I found it in like the last 20 minutes, and I was willing to go up to $10 plus shipping. That would put it about the range of everything else I saw. You know, but yeah, it was like $1.30. You know, it's going to show up with like a loogie inside it, right?
Well, I mean, that's their problem for setting such a low initial asking price for it, you know?
Yeah, that shit happens on eBay sometimes. I've definitely sold a handful of things too inexpensively. It happens, you know?
It certainly does.
Every now and then you get the thing where people bid it up past the buy it now price for some reason. I think their ego takes over. They just want to win the auction. You know, they don't want to. She's like, well, you could just buy it now, dog. Yeah, I'm excited about that one because also Shannon Elizabeth is in that game.
Nice.
Shannon Elizabeth is a Bond girl. That one's supposed to be good. That one's actually supposed to be a good one.
Yeah, that's the reason I remember it. I remembered hearing, I've never played it, but I remembered hearing around the time it came out, reviews are like, look, you might be surprised to hear this, but it's actually a pretty good game. And I was like, oh, dang, for real? But I just never got around to picking up a copy.
Just a wild time where PlayStation 2 still. We're at PlayStation 2 original Xbox, I think, at that point. They're casting Willem Dafoe and Shannon Elizabeth and Pierce Brosnan in a James Bond game.
That's right.
This is before Death Stranding, right? Before Until Dawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prestige Hollywood actor Willem Dafoe.
I mean, it's one of those things where, MGM or whoever it is, well, MGM wouldn't have made the game,
Yeah.
but he got approached and he's like, how would you feel about being the bad guy of a brand new Bond?
It
And
is,
he's
yeah.
like, absolutely. And then gets the contract and he's like, oh, it's a game. What?
Well, yeah. Look, Willie, this is as close as you're ever going to get to being in a James Bond movie. You should just say yes, right? Shannon, honey, this is as close as you're going to get to being a Bond girl. This is it. All right. Your odds were better before Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
But, here we are. So just sign it.
Yeah. Anyway, we're not here to talk about James Bond games. I just wanted to share that with you, Kenny. We are here to talk about alien stuff because this is Crew Expendable. And I am ancient pyramid graffiti artist Hallstrom.
And I am mining engineer Rohrbacher.
Nice. You went with an actual role on the ship.
Oh, my other one was monstrous invading creature. So
there you go. And we're just a couple of, what even are we? Purple tentacle monsters?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's a gross way to describe us.
Well,
invading the Starship Snark of the Alien franchise. Bad. They're getting worse.
Hey, they're getting funnier though, so it's fine.
Crew, we are. Oh, that's a new thing, Kenny. I'm trying to refer to our listeners as the Crew, which means they are, of course, expendable.
I was about to say that, but you beat me to it. Seems a little rude, but whatever.
Well, these audiences are fickle these days. Crew, we are here to talk about Alien, the original screenplay by Dan O'Bannon. But not just like the written screenplay. This is a comic book adaptation put out by Dark Horse Comics.
Specifically, it was actually put out, I believe, August through December of 2020. And it was actually the final Aliens comic Dark Horse ever printed before they lost the rights to it to Marvel.
Yeah, the very last Alien comic book series that Dark Horse published. Alien, the original screenplay, adapted for the comic book by Cristiano Seixas, with art by Guilherme Balbi, colors by Candace Hahn, lettering by Michael Heisler, and additional art, this is pretty cool, alternate covers by Walt Simonson and Dave Stewart. Walt Simonson, big deal. I mean, all of these, first of all, fantastic artists in this book all around, but Walt Simonson alternate covers for an alternate version of Alien. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, it's especially wild too because I believe he was the artist for the original comic book adaptation of the movie in 1979. And then, 40 years later, they brought him back to do more artwork for a different Alien comic book adaptation.
Yeah, I think exactly. I think 42 years later, something like that. So interesting. My local library has the Alien, the illustrated story, the Walt Simonson graphic novel version of Alien. I looked through it. It's pretty fucking sick. Really cool that like the final, like the Dark Horse closes their, 20, 30-year run of Alien comics with the alternate version of Alien and brings Walt Simonson in to do covers. It's what a nice bookend to that saga, right? I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, so this was a 5-issue, I think, miniseries published by Dark Horse Comics. Again,
yes, it was 5 issues. That's correct. Yeah.
And we're just going to talk a little bit about the differences. Now, I believe this is going to get reprinted. I think I read that this will be printed in the Aliens, the Original Years Omnibus Volume 3. That's correct. Slated to come out.
As of right now, it hasn't come out yet. Like it is scheduled to be released in January of next year.
Yeah, so you will be able to get a hold of this. I worry about stuff like this and like the William Gibson, that's got to get reprinted also, I'm sure. The Alien 3 script. I like that it's going to go back into print, even if it isn't a giant omnibus. You're going to have to pay a lot of money for. I think it's worth it and I think the diehard fans are definitely going to want to do that. But if you want to jump now, you can still find floppy issues of these in your local comic book stores, I'm sure. My brother actually just gave me one a couple weeks ago.
No, nice.
Issue 1 I have. He got it at a comic book store in Jacksonville.
Nice.
And the hardcover is still available. Check your local shops first, but you all know where this is available.
That's actually the version of it that I have. I have the trade hardcover collection of it.
Yeah, from the Big Evil Corporation, I'm sure. Just like I ordered mine.
Yeah, that's probably where I got mine too. Yeah, you're correct.
I did check my local shops first.
I did order mine from WaylandUtani.com. You're correct.
Oh boy, Kenny, did you have to sign any weird waivers about volunteering for colony missions to get your free 2-day shipping?
It was probably somewhere in the fine print that I just kind of skimmed over.
They're gonna make you watch weird Parasite videos. Like in that Covenant short.
So if I'm not on any of the episodes for the rest of the run, and then 64 years later you find me dead, you know what happened.
You are off building better worlds.
Correct.
Kenny, let's get into this thing. This is a pretty different. You seem pretty insistent that it's not that different from what we got, and I feel differently. How many times can I say different in one sentence? I think it's fairly different from what we...
Well, here's my thing.
Yeah.
It has a lot of little details that have been changed or are different, but the gist of the story is the same thing. It is the same framework with almost all of the same major events.
Yes.
And it's like the proper nouns have been changed. A couple of the locations have been switched around. A couple of the people get killed in different ways, but like 70% of the story is pretty much the same as the movie. That's the reason why.
The bones are absolutely the same.
Yeah.
It looks different. Maybe I'm just hyper focused on the different look. And the lack of a few things, a few big details switched around. Yeah. We're going to dive into all of that now. Let's meet our crew first. This is a very different crew. First of all, the main character, right? The ship they are all on. Not the USCSS Nostromo, or whatever the call sign for the Nostromo is. This ship is called the Snark,
which
SNARK.
Fine name, but I kind of like Nostromo better as a name, admittedly.
Nostromo definitely a better name, sure. And do you think is it another Joseph Conrad reference?
That I don't know off the top of my head, but if you give me a few seconds to stall for time, I can check.
Sure, why not?
Looking around, I can't seem to find any explicit connection between Joseph Conrad and the word snark.
Was he maybe a particularly snarky author? Would you describe Joseph Conrad as snarky?
Not particularly.
No, it's kind of moody, right? Kind of moody and brooding.
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of. Brooding is a good word for it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, maybe this was inspired by Kurt Vonnegut.
It was worth a try, at least.
Sure. Yeah, so that's a big major difference. The other difference is the crew. There are only 5 members of this crew, not 7.
There are 6 members.
Are you including the alien?
No, there are 6 crew members.
Who am I missing?
I don't know. Who are the 5 you have?
Let's go down my list here. I've got Captain Standard, right? We've got Roby.
Correct.
Who's kind of in the Ripley role. I'll just say that now.
She's kind of this comic's version of Ripley, yeah.
Yeah. Captain Standard is, obviously Dallas, right?
Yeah.
Broussard is the one who gets face hugged, correct? That's the Kane of the bunch.
Yes, that is correct.
And then we have Faust, who is one of the maintenance guys. That's the Parker role.
He is the maintenance guy. There's only one in this comic, but yes.
And then we have Melconis. That's 5.
Melconis is the guy who gets his head swiped off.
Yeah.
You're forgetting about the big bald guy with the huge beard.
Who's that? I know who. I mean, I know who that is, but who's that?
His name is Hunter.
Hunter, of course.
And his role on the ship is mining engineer.
Yeah. Okay. That's why you remember.
Yeah,
Sure.
in case you're wondering where I got mine from the top of the show,
Hunter.
it's like this guy, the bald guy that has like the tattoo on the side of his head.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the guy you were forgetting.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, my apologies. To your brother in space engineer roles, whatever. Yeah.
Also, just for the record, I also found out by looking at the Xenopedia article for this comic book, which is not as filled out with info as I would have liked, but they did have some stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things they had is they listed the first name of all 6 of the crew members. And going through and adding them onto my list, I realized that at least 2 of them are literally never said in the comic. So there's no way for you to know without having read it online what their first names are.
They must have come from the printed screenplay, right?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. I have that for the 5 characters I remembered. I don't have it for the 6th, but we have Chaz Standard, Martine Roby, Del Broussard, Jay Faust, and Sandy Malconis. Famously, Dan O'Bannon wrote all of the roles as male, but put a note specifically in his screenplay that any of these roles, gender is interchangeable for any of the roles in the film. Just because he wrote them all as male doesn't mean they all were intended to be or needed to be. He just wanted the best person for every role. And I think that I think that they, the people who adapted this screenplay for this comic, they took note of that, right? And we got men and women in different roles. We've got some of them I'm going to say are just kind of androgynous looking, perhaps non-binary. I don't want to make any sort of presumptions like that, but I like the look of everybody in this crew.
The one problem I had with the crew, or more specifically like the character designs for it and stuff, is that there were 3 different characters that had the haircut where it was shaved on the sides, but then long enough on the top to be combed over.
Right.
And so because of that, some of the characters, I had a hard time being able to remember which one was which for a while. Then like I got familiar enough with them that it was easier to tell them apart. Like one of them has like really long hair, one of them has dark hair while the other has blonde hair, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the beginning, literally half the crew has like the shave with the comb over. And I was like, wow, 3 different people have kind of similar haircuts. I'm starting to have a little bit of trouble remembering or figuring out which person is which at first.
Yeah, that's fair. And we do see them a lot in helmets and things like that as well, too. It is a little tricky. Like some people out there listening to this have probably heard me and Corey complain about the Mortal Kombat comics in MK PodQuest constantly having characters reintroduce themselves and say their own names or address each other by name.
Yeah.
And those are pretty like you can tell the characters apart in a book like that.
Yeah.
In a book like this where it's not well-known characters and it's different versions of characters we're already familiar with.
And they're supposed to just look like regular, normal people.
And they're not ice ninjas or 4-armed Goro men. I would have liked it if they had made it a little bit clearer who was who, even just as like in an editorial way of just like, I don't know, putting name tags on them, like labels on them or something on the page, just so that I could figure out who is who. Because you're right, sometimes it was really hard for me to keep track of who's doing what, particularly when they were wearing helmets, which they do quite a bit in this.
Yeah, like, for instance, the guy you forgot about, Hunter, which, going back to earlier, his first name, by the way, is Cleve. But,
of course it is.
Yeah, Cleve Hunter. Yes, that's that guy's name.
Jesus Christ.
But, like, you know, I have the collection, the trade that has all 5 issues.
Yeah.
But the 5 issues, they're not like split up.
No.
It's just like one continuous long thing. Like they don't tell you when you switched from one issue to another.
Yeah.
And the reason why this is significant is because I was going through this book, I was reading it, and I was like, what the fuck is that bald guy's name? And I kept going through, and then eventually at one point in the storyline, somebody refers to him as Hunter, and I was like, oh shit, okay, his name is Hunter. And I went back through and added it to my notes, and then I looked through like where I was in the book, and I was like, this has got to be like issue 2 or 3.
Right.
Like they waited until almost halfway through the series to finally tell me what the name of one of the main characters of the comic was.
Yeah, we don't even get like when they're waking up from the pods and they're all naked at the beginning, like we don't even get like labels on the pods so we can start to identify people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a weird choice, but like, like I said, by the time I was done, I remembered who everyone was, so I guess it all came out as a wash in the end. But while I was reading it, it was a little annoying not I was having more trouble than I was expecting being able to tell these characters apart.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What are you gonna do though?
Yeah. But anyway.
So what do you think of our alternate crew here? I don't feel like I really got to know any of them particularly well. How did you feel about them, though?
Well, there was really only 1 or 2 characters that had much of a personality.
Yeah.
And those 2 characters were the ones that were effectively direct one-to-one analogs to characters from the final version of the released movie.
Right. So, Roby, I'm going to guess, and Captain Standard. Are those your 2?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Those are my 2, yes.
Yes.
The ones that are literally just Ripley and Dallas, but with a different name,
right,
were the 2 most well-rounded and fleshed out characters in this comic.
100%.
That is correct.
Everybody else really was interchangeable.
Yeah, like Hunter had a line earlier on, like he has like that classic Parker line of like, oh, like, what do we have to do around here to like get paid more?
Right.
But like he only ever brings it up the once, and it's never like it never gets brought up or comes up at all again at any point in the comic. And so I was like, oh, is he like the Parker guy? But then like later on in the comic, he does stuff that like isn't how Parker acted.
Right.
So I was like, oh, so he's just a different guy. Like, oh, he's not even an analog here. He just happened to be the one that had a similar line to Parker. I got you.
Sure. Yeah. Have you read the screenplay, not the comic book adaptation, but the actual screenplay?
I have not, no.
I haven't either, so I don't think we can speak to, like, maybe there is more stuff in those that builds characters and personalities, but the way that I'm receiving this now is that the casting of the movie, and then I think Ridley Scott, talking to the crew and the way that they're building the characters, like, I think that brought a lot of the personality into the movie, right?
Yeah, probably.
Like Yaphet Kotto brought a lot to Parker, Yeah. And obviously Ellen Ripley was brought to life by Sigourney Weaver. Like, I think, the actors obviously bring their stuff. Like, they bring the words alive, like to life, right? That's what actors do. Mm-hmm. I think it speaks to the quality of casting that we got in the movie, just even more, and the people making the movie finding these moments to like really build these stock archetypal one-note characters, if I'm going to be honest. Like,
yeah, pretty much.
That's what they are. That's, I think, a large part of why Dan O'Bannon was like, just cast anybody in any of this, just make it good, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, anybody, like, these are bare bones characters. These are people on a spaceship who are going to get eaten by an alien. Like,
they're actually pretty much exactly that.
Because again, he was writing this as like a low budget Roger Corman style movie. He wasn't writing this to be like the most influential film of all time,
Yeah, and if they had made the movie based on this version of the script, Alien would not have ended up being that.
No, it would have been a cult hit, I think. Still, it would have been a pretty fun like
Yeah, I mean,
cult
it would have been
movie.
fun. I would have enjoyed it. It would be a good movie, but it wouldn't be the movie it is now,
It
you
wouldn't
know?
be Alien, right? So let's move on from our crew. I don't think I got much else to say about them.
Yeah, I don't either. You're good.
Let's talk about the aesthetics. Let's talk about the look of everything. Everything except the monster. Let's save the monster for the end, like we did with the Alien, with the movie
Mhm.
episode, right?
Works for me.
Yeah, the monster in the fourth act. Aesthetically, everything looks different. There's a little forward in this hardcover by I think the editor.
Yeah, got it here right now. Randy Stradley is his name.
Yeah, where he talks about rejecting like the creature designs and stuff over and over again because the stuff felt too Giger-esque, right?
Yeah, he's like I had them redesign parts of the monster several times cuz I thought it still looked too much like the one from the movie.
Right. And more specifically for this segment, stuff looking too much like Ron Cobb's set design from the film. We talked about him a little
Yeah.
bit in the last episode.
Yep.
So the ship, obviously, it looks like a ship. I don't think the ship looks particularly different, right? It still has like a sort of
Yeah.
generic Star Wars. It almost feels like the Covenant to me a little
Like
bit.
I'm a couple of pages into the first issue cuz I actually have my hardcover copy of it. I'm looking at it
Yeah.
right now, and you were correct to describe it as kind of looking like a Star Wars ship.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
it's just spaceship, right?
Yeah.
But
It's just a spaceship.
the planet they set down on
Mhm.
when they read the distress beacon, that's mighty different, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that really does look a lot different, even from the version of it on the movie. Like it's like when it lands, it's still like barren and everything, but it's a lot more like swirling dust, and like the sky is like black and gold lines and stripes all over the place.
Yeah.
And like it really does look like they went out of their way to really actually make it look like visually distinct, as
Yes.
opposed to just like, bland, like dead, lifeless big piece of rock.
Sure.
Like it looks like a place,
Yes. And we get two significant locations in this. We don't just get the derelict ship that we got in Alien, the film. We get a derelict ship here. We don't get a good look at it. It doesn't really look like a juggernaut.
There is one shot of it where we do kind of see what it looks like.
Yeah.
And in my notes, I kind of described it as, imagine kind of a gigantic overturned starfish is
Okay.
kind of what it looks like. Like, it has like the center spot that all like these arms are coming out of in like a radial pattern, but like the arms are kind of like pointed down at an angle, kind of like a triangle. And I don't want to say like a triangle, but like a tent kind of,
Okay.
but then flip it upside down so the arms are pointing up rather than
right.
down. That's kind of the ship looks like.
Okay, I can see that.
I mean, it's a very rough description because it's kind of, they went out of their way to make something that doesn't really have a human equivalent.
Right.
So
Yeah.
the best I can do is it kind of looks like an overturned starfish.
Yeah, and that sort of matches the design of the space jockey in this version, right?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely.
Before we get to that big lug though, interiors of the ship, they still feel pretty engineering to me. It's maybe a little less biological, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of like lasery looking like pulsing lights, although the lights aren't really like active because the ship is dead. But there's a lot of like, you can see piping in the walls where like lights would run through it and stuff. And like it does have a different vibe and it does look cool, but it doesn't look, how should I put this?
It feels organic, but not biological, right? Like
correct. That's a good way to put it. Yeah,
it doesn't feel like the engine, like the inside of the juggernauts felt like maybe they could be alive a little bit, right? Like it's gum tissue or something. And this isn't like that at all, but it is still naturally. It does have a natural occurring shape feel to it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we got our big lug of a space jockey who has like a star for a head, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of.
Big, long limbs, kind of a Groot body, I'll call it a Groot body,
Oh,
right?
dude, he is so fucking big in this comic. Like how we were talking, like
Yeah.
in the movie, we're like, oh man, that engineer is like, or that space jockey is like really big. He's bigger than the other ones. He's got to be like 12 fucking feet tall.
Yes.
This jockey in this comic is probably 20 feet tall.
Yeah. And it
He is
feels
massive.
it feels like it feels tree-like to me. I know they describe it as mummified, and that's probably why the coloring is kind of gone from it, right?
Yeah, see, they said that he was mummified, but
Yeah.
based on the coloration, based on like the design for what they give, and everything, like to me, he looks less mummified and more petrified.
Petrified. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, interesting design. Doesn't look anything like what we know the space jockey or the engineers to be.
Yeah, he has like a roughly like vaguely triangular shaped head if the point was down rather than up, but then there's a big spike coming out of the top, and then
Yeah.
at like, where the cheeks would be, and then on the two sides of where the chin would be, out to the sides, there's these other big four long like needle spikes coming out.
Right.
And this is significant because we find out later in the comic that they brought the guy's head back with them
I was gonna
when they
ask.
come back from the ship.
I was going to ask if that was in fact his head. They do call it Yorick, right? They're making
I'm
Hamlet references as if it's
pretty
Yorick's head.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's his head because it's
Yeah.
like they were carrying it around, and I was like, I'm not entirely sure what that's supposed to be. So I looked at that page and I was flipping back and forth between that page and this one.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, it does look a lot like the head. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm like 80% sure that's what it's supposed to be.
Right. And they find a little clue on here. They find something scratched into the wall. First, they find out that this is where the distress beacon or warning beacon as we know it is being broadcast from. They also, the exploratory party also makes a huge deal out of the fact that this is in fact first contact. This is first encounter with an alien species, an intelligent alien species at least.
During the episode on the movie, we had that question and we were kind of frustrated at how they never gave us a definitive answer.
Yeah.
Well, turns out in this, they do give us a definitive answer, and the answer is yes.
I was thinking about that too. And remember in Alien Covenant Origins at the strip club?
Yeah.
Where it seemed to be that maybe not everybody there was human, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think that we can go ahead and assume that in the final version of this, of Alien, it was not first contact. They've already had alien strippers back on Earth.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, there are already alien sex workers on Earth in the canonical Alien universe, thanks to Alien Covenant Origins.
I'll fully support that.
So a clue they find, or we see, I thought this was a pretty slick detail, and we'll reveal what it's a reference to shortly, is they find a scratch that looks like a primitive drawing in the console, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a horizontal line and then a spike and then a continuing horizontal line, right?
Yeah, it's like an angled line where it like goes from side, from left to right, but like the two center segments of it kind of up at an angle to a point and then down at another angle back to where the line started. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a spike on a, ER machine.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly I'm smart.
That's right.
Looking for the picture of that.
It is, if you got the book open, it's the same page that they discover the space jockey in.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got the little panel here. Yeah. So they get back this landing party, which I think is it the same?
The landing party is Standard, Melkonis, and Broussard.
Yeah, and Broussard. So it is the same as what will be our next landing party. They get out of the derelict just fine. They just find this big dead guy, pop his head off or something, and take it back to the Snark, right?
Yeah. As far as they're aware, that's it. They're done.
But once they get back on the ship, they start, checking out the alien head, etc. At some point, the weather on the planet clears. I guess we should note that they are again stuck on the planet for a while for maintenance repairs. This time it's because they got clogged with dust from the storm, and it just like knocked out a bunch of their power cells or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't
Something
like
like that, yeah.
it wasn't like damage from the landing. It was just from the environment. They sucked a bunch of this gold dust in.
Yeah, like as opposed to like, in the movie, it's just like a barren, dull, lifeless rock. In this one, there's like a lot of wind and blowing around dust and stuff. And so when they were landing to like go investigate the beacon, a bunch of their intakes and valves and stuff got clogged with dust.
Yeah.
And so that was the reason why they had to sit tight for a while until they could leave again.
So while they're sitting tight, the storm clears and they see a second location, a second sign of life on this planetoid, right?
They sure do.
And what is it, Kenny?
They discover a fucking pyramid on the horizon.
Holy shit. And that's what the drawing was of. That's what the little scratch was, dude.
They look back at the scratch and go, oh, that's what that is. It is a pyramid drawn on a horizon line, of course.
That must be where this big alien man is from, right?
That's what they assume. They assume that he did that because he was indicating that's where he came from. I'm also pulling my collar right now while I say that.
Yes. So they set out to explore this as well. And now maybe we should talk a little bit about how they look. The spacesuits, the atmospheric suits are different than in Alien.
Mm-hmm.
They're also wearing like those camo capes that like Luke and Leia were wearing in Return of the Jedi, right?
They sure were.
The helmets are not quite as goldfish bowly. They're a lot tighter on the face.
Yeah, they still have like 80% glass surface,
right?
But there's a lot less space between your face and the helmet than there otherwise is, than there is in like the final.
Almost
version.
like a if the visor on the Iron Man helmet was clear, almost like that.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if an Iron Man helmet was transparent, that's almost kind of what it looks like. Yeah.
Sure. So the same crew, Standard, Boussard, and other person who I'm not
Melkonis.
Melkonis. Which one of them had
Standard, Melkonis, and Broussard?
One of them is trigger. One of them has a gun and is trigger happy. By the way.
Let's see if I can figure out who that is.
I think it's Boussard.
That is, well, luckily, when they have their helmets on, each one of them has their name written on the front of it.
Thank God.
I think that's Melkonis.
Melkonis, okay.
I think.
So they get to this pyramid and they send Boussard. He scales the pyramid, right, with grappling hooks and shit, because they have all this climbing gear in this version. And then he rappels down inside. He's the only one that enters the pyramid.
Yeah, because he goes up to the top and he finds like this weird little like cave opening hole at the top that is very clearly not like naturally a part of whenever they built this pyramid. Like this hole was, dug or opened after the fact by something else.
And it's just enough room for him to perch up top and climb inside. So he rappels down in, and I think they kind of lose communication after a while, but he's still sort of reporting back. Should be noted at this point, I think that they have deciphered the so-called distress beacon back on the ship and figured out that it is in fact a warning beacon, and that the drawing of the pyramid, it was a warning, do not go to that fucking pyramid, right?
Correct. Yeah, that does happen during this scene.
Yes, but dude rappels down in and finds this book's version of the egg chamber, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is squids everywhere, man. I don't know how to describe it. Everything is tentacly.
I cannot stress to the listener, like, the tentacle quotient of this book
off the charts.
So much fucking higher. Like everything except for the final stage version of the alien, everything is just covered in fucking tentacles.
Record numbers of tentacles in this comic book. If you're a tentacle freak, we got the book for you.
That is correct.
Don't worry, it'll be reprinted in the original year's omnibus number 3.
Correct.
Tentacle edition. You fucking weirdos.
But yeah, he lands, and there's all of these what we know to be ovomorphs, but in
Yes.
this, they just look like basically giant masses of tentacles that
Yeah.
have kind of like pulled in to like form a vague egg shape. But like on the walls around him, there are what are maybe carvings, I'm not
Yeah.
sure,
Like
but just like
paintings,
just like
hieroglyphics.
walls. It's just like multiple walls in a row of just the entire wall top to bottom is just an image of dozens of writhing
Right.
tentacles. That's all it is.
It feels a lot. It doesn't feel like a mural like we got in Prometheus of the xenomorph. This feels like organic matter on the walls, like we see the hives kind of be in Aliens
Yeah.
in particular. But
Yep, that's kind of what I was thinking too.
and it's all growing between like what is clearly like, I'm not going to say man-made, but built structure with like hieroglyphs of some type. Like maybe not hieroglyphs, glyphs of some type written all
It's a
over it.
very, yeah, exactly. It's very clear that like whatever like wall or structure these things were in, like this structure was built specifically for these tentacle things
Yeah.
to be put in them to hold them here.
In-
That's what they're for, you know?
Intelligent life, right? For sure.
Yeah.
Things unfold the way you would expect. Dude gets too close to an ovomorph. He puts his hand on it. It opens up. Purple tentacle mass shoots out and grabs him by his face. His friends outside, Standard and Melconis, had him on a 10-minute clock, so they start automatically reeling him back in since they don't have contact with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they get the dude out, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the monster there in that it's purple. I think we've mostly talked about aesthetic changes in this so far. I just want to say this is probably the biggest story element change in the whole thing is derelict ship, one location, egg chamber, second location. When they're trying to like reason what's going on there, they're thinking like, so this other alien crash landed here, found the pyramid, his people got infected maybe. He sent out the warning to not land here and not explore this pyramid and drew the picture as a warning, like trying to keep other people from it. Or is it like what we get the version of in Alien, which sort of got cemented with Prometheus and Covenant, of the space jockey was in charge of this facility and it got out of control, right? It's one of the two, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But having it be a distinctly separate location makes the mystery that much better. You don't have to connect the two that way, right? It could just be another unlucky bastard who's set down on the wrong planet, you know?
Yeah,
just like
like
these people.
The space jockey in this comic, it's literally the events of this comic, but it happened with them rather than this group of people. Yeah.
Maybe they're the ones who I mean, I think the implication is that they are the ones who busted the hole in the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something escaping, you know, that's something breaking in. So it seems clear to me that they just fucked up. You know, they just fucked up just like this crew did.
Also, I should take a moment to, because we haven't really talked about it yet, I should point out that is not actually the first meaningful story change from what we're used to that we've gotten so far in this comic. Astute listeners will notice that we said there were only 6 crew members.
Sure, yeah.
That is because the character and concept of Ash doesn't exist.
Yeah,
there isn't an android. There was not an android that was sent in. I don't think the ship even has a science officer.
No.
And the reason I'm bringing that up now is because, you know, they bring Broussard back when he has this tentacle face hugger attached to him. And in the movie, when they were gone, Ash was the one monitoring them. In this, because Ash, the character concept, doesn't exist, Roby, i.e. Ripley, is the one that's doing the monitoring, and they try to, like, you know, get her to let them in, and she keeps saying no and keeps saying no. And, you know, in the movie, they get in because Ash disobeys orders and opens the door. But since that character doesn't exist, they end up getting in because Standard is like, I am literally giving you a direct order, open the goddamn door. And Roby's just like,
Yes.
fine, and opens the door to let him in.
And she does.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No Ash in this. No company. Order
Yeah, no crew
937,
expendable,
nothing.
no nothing. Not in this movie at all. Book. Sorry, it's not a movie, it's a book.
Well, it's a movie that you read, dude.
I
right?
meant to say story, all right? I got like 4 hours of sleep last night.
Yeah.
Cut me some dang
Oh,
slack.
man, I'm sorry.
It's fine. I'm a little bit under the weather.
So we're back on the ship.
Yes.
Everything's gonna unfold pretty much the same as it does in the movie. There are a couple of differences in the way certain characters die, like you alluded to. I don't know how deep we need to go into all of those, Kenny. I think that our time will be better spent discussing now the monsters, the similarity and difference in the creature itself. We can't even really call it a xenomorph, can we?
It's really not. No, it's I just refer to it as the alien or the creature. It's not
Sure.
It's not a xenomorph. So
no, the creature. I like the creature. Xenopedia calls it the alien original screenplay creature.
Yeah.
That's a little clunky.
A little. So yeah.
So we've got the face hugger, the massive tentacles on this guy's face. It was really hard to like see the detailed look of this thing.
Yeah, it was never, to be fair, it was never really given a whole lot of detail. There's never a spot where you get like a good solid, like, you know, in the movie, they lay Kane down. There's just a shot right there of the face hugger just directly wrapped around him. They don't have an equivalent panel in this comic where we very clearly and directly front ahead, right in center panel, ever really get a good look at this thing.
No, it's just kind of like green and purple and mucus looking.
It looks like, if you picture in your head, imagine you're watching cartoon on Cartoon Network, and you know, one of the characters like, it looks like somebody's organ, and they have this kind of like goofy drawing of like a blob with a couple of little tentacles sticking out. Like, that's kind of what it just looks like. It looks like a purpley, like a vague purple sphere made of like tentacles that's wrapped around this guy's head.
Still has molecular acid blood. They still do the whole thing where they try to cut it off its face and the blood leaks through the hole.
Correct.
The big difference here is once it does release from Broussard's face, it almost immediately starts to disintegrate itself. Fortunately, they are still on the planetoid and they are able to get it out of the ship before it breaks down into acid.
They just open up the lock and just toss it back out onto the planetoid and close the door, and that's the end of that.
It's a fun detail. Thinking like, you know how squirrels are idiots?
I do, yes.
And they'll just like run in front of your car, you know? Because they don't understand, and because we've encroached on their environment, of course, and our with our big metal behemoths, etc.
Yeah.
I feel like an alien species that disintegrates into acid, like when it dies, is stupid for trying to get on a spaceship, right? Because that would just kind of ruin its next life cycle stage if the previous one fucked the ship up and it couldn't survive in space, and it just you understand what I'm saying. Like, if it had eaten through the hole, so probably a good change that they didn't make these things break down into acid, right? Like right afterwards, but now I'm kind of wondering.
Like, I thought that was a cool, fun little touch while I was reading the book, but it was one of those things where I was like, I do think this is cool, but I'm glad it didn't work that way in the movie. Like, I'm glad this is one of the differences that the comic has.
Yeah, I'm glad that's not part of the mythology.
Yeah.
Anyway, standard stuff happens from here. If you've seen Alien, you know what's going on. The chest burster scene in this was basically the same, a little less impactful, in my opinion.
Yeah, because they did it at a real wide shot, and they had him continuing to sit in his chair rather than knocking everything over and laying him on the table. And yeah, they did it from a wide shot, and it happened a lot quicker. Although one thing I will say I do like is that in the wide shot where the burster is actually in the process of coming out of him, you can see that the illustrator gave a little like headless tooth-filled mouth inside the mass of tentacles that was bursting out of him, and like it gave it a little head similar to how the chest burster in the movie has, which I thought was a nice touch.
Because other than that, it's just another mass of purple tentacles. Right?
Correct. Yes.
Now, I'm going to go back to that intro just because I don't want people thinking that these artists are like, oh, what are they doing? Just drawing tentacles everywhere. The descriptions in the original screenplay were the alien is larger than a man, has arms, legs, and razor-tipped tentacles. So they just ran with that tentacles idea that was laid out in the original screenplay, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is again...
Because basically how they describe it is because this draft of the script was written like, before Ron Shusett got involved, and before H.R. Giger got involved, and so none of the designs had been made. So all of the designs for like the ship and the planet and the creatures and all that, all the designs for that stuff in this comic is based off of the descriptions that are written in the script.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's how this works.
Yeah. So now they got the alien loose on the ship.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to shout out to the crew right now, who at this point thinks that the way these aliens work, and because this chest burster looks like the first one they saw, is that they're going to latch onto each other's faces, decide to go on the hunt wearing masks. Brilliant, smart move. First crew we've had who is trying to protect their fucking face and mouth from alien shit.
Correct.
In all of the stuff we've watched so far. Or read.
Or read, yeah.
Bravo. There is an alternate alien universe out there where people protect their faces when they're dealing with this kind of shit.
Because one brief interjection for a flashback, when Broussard got attacked by the facehugger, it was because he took his goddamn helmet off first.
You are right. That is an important detail.
Yes.
He realized that the atmosphere inside that pyramid was breathable.
Yeah.
That pyramid, by the way, there's pyramids in Alien versus Predator. There are structures in Prometheus. Like, I think that those things they must have gotten some influence, some inspiration from this screenplay, you ask me.
Yeah, probably.
And it is fun to see that as an element pop up in later Alien projects.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the big man himself.
I'm flipping through the book until I find that picture of him again.
He is on the cover.
Well, yeah.
Not a great detailed shot.
Yeah,
but
not a very good one, but there he is. All right. I will go on record right now as saying that I think the monster design for the fully grown creature in this comic is extremely good, and I like it a lot.
Oh, man. I like it, too. It's pretty cool.
The thing of it is that at the end of the day, it's simply not as iconic as the Xenomorph design is.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, this does still resemble the Xenomorph. It does. Really tall. It's like impossibly like biologically thin. It still has like the rooting and like, various biological, it almost looks like it has a shell almost. It has like a big head that extends out in one direction, smooth, and it doesn't have eyes.
Sure, it's got razor sharp teeth. It does not have a distended second jaw, but it's got the razor sharp tail. It's got it feels like a cousin.
It does look more specifically humanoid though.
Right.
If this had been the design of the monster in the actual movie, but otherwise it was exactly the movie was exactly the same as the one we knew, but they just used this monster design instead.
Yeah.
That right there, the movie would not be as iconic or as well known because the Xenomorph design specifically, the thing about it is that it is unnatural and impossible because
Right.
there are parts of it that, your brain cannot accept as being created via nature. Whereas this monster, it looks cool and I like it, and I like the design of the creature, but
you're nailing it.
But it feels fully natural. It feels just like a creature you could find out somewhere. It's clearly not of Earth origin, but it feels just like a animal.
It's given me like shark.
Yeah.
It's got like shark vibes to me. Like it's made of cartilage or something.
Yeah,
I feel like it's made of cartilage and bone. Like if you took the Xenomorph and like, you know how the Deacon felt like, well, maybe you don't, I haven't really talked about this. The Deacon feels like an exaggeration of all of the Xenomorph features.
I'll agree to that. Yeah.
So like if you took a Xenomorph and you pulled all of that stuff off and you stuck it on the Deacon, what you were left with might be this thing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah, I'll agree to that. Yep.
This is also kind of given me Neomorph vibes from Covenant, the white dudes.
Yeah, yeah.
But like if there was a cycle between them and the Xenomorph, it might be this, right? Like approaching more of that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The head shape is vaguely queen-like as well.
It is, yeah.
From what we'll see of the queens later, the mouth feels like the jaw feels like the queen a little bit more to me than it does the standard Xenomorph. It's a cool design and I like it, but I 100% agree with what you're saying that this doesn't feel unnatural. It doesn't. Yeah, it feels like it kind of feels like the monsters you see that are knockoffs of the Xenomorph a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Like this is the kind of thing. This is the kind of thing where when you mentioned in the previous episode, this was originally going to be made by Roger Corman. This is what the monster would have looked like if Roger Corman had made this movie,
This is a monster you would blow away in Area 51 at the arcade, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like in an Activision like gun game, you'd shoot like 40 of these guys in a level.
Yeah, this is like if you're going through like an alien shooter game, this guy would be like the boss of level 4 or whatever.
But it is a rad design, and so you turn to the very back page of the hardcover, and that's one of the alternate covers there, one of the Walt Simonson covers.
Yeah,
of just the alien, and it is cool looking. I'm gonna use that for the thumbnail.
Yeah, I mean, it is a cool design. Like I said, don't get me wrong. I do like the way it looks. It's just, it just doesn't seem as iconic to me. The classic Xenomorph we know and love.
Behaviorally, how does it stack up to the Xenomorph we saw in Alien?
A little bit different. Like the context in the story for when we finally see the full-grown adult creature is because they're pulling the Dallas move of chasing it through the vent.
Yes.
So they could collect it on the other side in a net because they still think it's the chest burster face hugger size.
Right.
And while it was getting chased through the vents, during that time is apparently as much time as it needed to grow to full size, because it launches out of the vents, slices somebody's head off, scoops up that headless body, and jumps back into another vent and just disappears into the ship. And so it seems a lot more aggressive than the one in the movie does, because there's a couple of different spots in this comic where the creature attacks an entire group of people at once. Like we discussed in the previous episode about how, up until when it took on Parker and Lambert, it had been picking people off one by one. There's a couple of different spots where it just shows up in the middle of a group of people and just attacks them.
Yes. We see it at one point, like just chilling in a lab, eating an arm. Right.
Yeah. There's that's actually ends up being one of the characters one of the different ways in this comic that a character gets killed in comparison to the movie, where one of the characters is it's Faust actually is going down to collect the flamethrower. I was going to say flamethrower ammunition because I play video games, but flamethrower fuel. There we go. And on the way, he finds it just sitting there chilling in a room, like you said, just like eating a body. And that room happens to be the like main airlock for the ship. And so he gets on the radio and he's like, everyone on the bridge, I need you to blow the airlock because it's in it. Blow the airlock right goddamn now. Just fucking do it. Do it right now. And so they start doing it, but like the door takes long enough to close that the creature hears it and jumps over Faust to get into the main part of the ship. Pushing him into the airlock, and then the airlock door closes on his waist and slices him in half, killing him.
Yep. And that's how Faust gets ousted.
Which actually
Fausted gets ousted.
That's actually good work. That's actually another thing I was going to say. That it's like
call it now.
It's fine. But yeah, that's actually another thing I was going to say though, because like the creature, sorry, I want to, to differentiate it from a xenomorph. I want to, internally insist for myself. I keep calling this thing the creature. The creature is more aggressive and will attack entire groups of people, but it's also not as good of a hunter, stalker, or killer as the xenomorph is, because there's 5 people that get killed over the course of this comic, and discounting Ash from the movie because he's not a human, 5 people also die in that movie as well. In the movie, the 5 humans that die, all 5 of them are killed by the xenomorph.
Yes.
In this comic, the 5 humans that get killed, only 2 of them are killed by the creature.
Sure. Faust dies in the door closing.
Yeah, Faust dies by getting crushed by the airlock door. Hunter gets killed when the creature appears behind him and bites him on the neck, and then he turns around to do something, and Standard is standing there with the flamethrower and just lights both of them up.
Right. And he burns to death.
And then they do the egg morphing deleted scene from the movie.
Yes.
That's in this.
Yes.
And Roby comes across Standard partially mutated, and then she lights her on fire with the flamethrower, killing her. So Broussard and Melconis are the only people in this comic the creature actually kills.
Correct. So let's talk about that egg morphing scene, because that is a deleted scene from the movie. The implication of this, if I'm understanding correctly, is that the people that are webbed up, are they getting mutated into egg sacs for these things?
From what I've been able to gather, the original belief is that, because at this point, queens didn't exist.
Right.
And so the idea they came up with for how eggs were created was that xenomorphs would capture people and physically
mutate them,
change and transform their bodies into an ovomorph. And that's where xenomorph eggs come from.
I have definitely heard that before. So if that scene is in this book, so that implies that all of the ovomorphs that we saw in the pyramid in this book are mutated aliens from the derelict, perhaps.
Well, perhaps.
Or some of them could be anyway, right?
Because those ovomorphs were weird, purple, green, like I said, they looked like tentacles that were pulled into a ball. Whereas this egg morphing scene, when we come across it, it doesn't, like, Standard doesn't look like that, you know?
No, they're all like lumpy and like grayish green, and you can see that her face is mutating a little bit. But
And she's kind of starting to like melt and like meld into like the resin she's trapped inside of, you know?
yeah, and she does say that the stuff has eaten too much of her, right?
And that's why Roby needs to kill her, yeah.
Gross.
Yeah, real gross.
Yeah. That does lend something to the idea of that pyramid being like a sacrificial chamber, like where they do some kind of an offering to,
Yeah.
you know, some kind of, I'm losing the word. It's late.
Yeah, I know I know what you mean though.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't hate the idea. I don't hate the idea of ultimately and I guess they kind of fucked around with this with Prometheus with the pathogen, right?
Yeah.
That they're like bringing that idea back that at the core of this species really is a virus. It really is an infection, right?
Yeah.
It's an infection that just manifests as large monsters you have to face in real life, but it is still an infection. That's a cool concept. I think I overall like the queen idea better, honestly. It's the same shit that rubs me the wrong way of like the implication that Shaw's DNA is in the Xenomorph.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's still, I mean, this is a little less that because this is still just something terrifying that exists out in the universe, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, man. I think I'm ultimately happy with what we have instead.
Yeah, I mean, I will go on record right now. I did like the comic a lot, but I like the movie more than I like this comic. Yes, that is correct.
Sure. Fourth act, I guess there's one other minor difference in their plan at this point where they're just going to try to escape the ship, right?
Yeah.
Their plan is not to escape the ship. Their plan is not to escape in the shuttle because they don't want to take their chances in the shuttle where there's only one hypersleep pod. Like in the movies, you know, they were going to take their chances, right?
Yeah.
In this, they don't want to take their chances. They want to lure the creature onto the shuttle and then blast the shuttle out into space and blow it up.
Correct.
As opposed to blast themselves off in the shuttle and blow up the big ship.
Yep.
Way better plan.
Way better plan. Yeah. Exactly.
Wish that had been in the movie. That makes more sense.
That makes way more sense. And it also solves the problem that everyone seemed to kind of gloss over in the movie where they were like, let's just fucking blow the ship and try and kill it. And everyone's like, all right, you got it. But in this, when they suggest, why don't we fucking blow up the ship? Hunter goes, then we'll lose literally everything we went on this like multi-year mission. Like we'll be broke. We'll be completely screwed. Even if we live,
so much
we'll
money.
Be fucked.
And Roby, smartly, who does make the escape on the shuttle ultimately and blow the ship up, does take some loot with her.
She does.
She also takes the head, which again she calls Yorick.
Yorick. Just for the record, she takes some Tacitum 35 is what she takes. She says she picks that because, quote, this'll buy us an island on some nice planet. I should say she says us because by this point she once again has the cat with her.
Love that saving the cat.
Oh yeah,
was in this, right? Gotta protect that kitty cat.
I also found it interesting that in this comic book, the cat literally is never given a name. He's just the cat for the entire comic.
I also love that they complain about how much cat hair is on the ship.
Yeah, somebody says at one point that it's even in the coffee they're drinking.
Yeah.
But anyway.
So Roby is the Ripley. She draws the short straw. They democratically elect who does what in this thing, right? Basically drawing of straws. It was I think it was crunched up pieces of paper or whatever.
Yeah, it was balled up pieces of paper with an X drawn on one of them, but it's basically drawing straws,
And that's how they elected who was going to go into the vents to try to, chase the monster into the airlock, and then that's how they elected who was going to stay back at the shuttle as bait, which is Roby, but Roby doesn't end up being bait. The monster goes after Standard, and is it Malkonis still, or who's
no,
the other
it's
survivor? It's
Hunter. The bald
Why
guy.
do I just cannot remember Hunter for the fucking life of me.
Melk-
Hunter doesn't exist to me.
Melcanis is the one that got his head sliced off when the thing first appears.
Melconis was the Brett, right?
Yes.
It's unfucking real. Okay, dude, I am looking at the Xenopedia page.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go down to characters, tap number 4 there. Chaz Standard, Martine Roby, Del Broussard, Jay Faust, Sandy Melconis, and the Alien original screenplay creature. No mention of Hunter in the character list on here.
Well,
I see that he is in the description, the plot description, but he's not.
It's just
so funny.
It's strange that he's not listed on the character sheet there, because where would I have gotten his first name from if he wasn't listed on that page?
It is in the first paragraph of the plot.
It is.
So
okay, got it.
It does say mining engineer Cleve Hunter. So
got it. Okay, cool.
So yeah, they cover everyone in that, but I skipped that. I just went right for the character list. I don't know. I'm just living in a Hunterless world. What if I was like, what bald guy, dude? My copy of the book doesn't have a bald guy with a tattoo on his head. Like, what if he was just absent completely from?
Also, I will also say it is extremely weird that he's the character you keep forgetting about, because he is literally the first character we see in the comic.
It's unreal. I had a busy couple days too, and I read this thing last night, so give me a break.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So we're on the 4th act of the story.
Right. So I love this. The plan in this was to launch the thing out in the shuttle, and then it backfires as standard. The 4th act pretty much unfolds the same as it does in the movie. Would you say that?
Pretty much, yeah. It's it happens a lot faster.
It does.
There's a lot less of drawing things out and panning around. Also, when she crawls into the closet to put the suit on, it notices her and tries to break in and attack her.
Right. Yeah. Again, the more vicious creature. It's almost like this one is more of a wild animal.
Yeah.
That suits the design too. Sorry, I'd circle back to this, and then just like the idea, it's like a lion just sitting out on the plains, like eating an antelope, right? And then it gets hungry, so it wants to chase the next one, right?
Yeah.
Like it really does have it does have shark energy, you know? I think it does. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, I mean, I didn't really have much. It's just, like we said, or like you said, it happens pretty much mostly the same. She gets on her suit, opens up the door, hits it through the torso with a spear, and then opens the airlock and blows it out. They do the thing where, how in the movie it grabs on with its claw, and then she the door cinches down and slices the arm off or something like that.
Except it wraps the tentacle around her ankle in this.
Yeah, in this, and then gets sliced off after that. And there's a slight difference here where when she activates the jet to burn it up, it's not because it was trying to crawl back in through the ship. It was just drifting into space and happened to drift by the jet, and she hit it anyway. And rather than in the movie where this thing just gets charred and burnt to a crisp, in this it actually gets disintegrated and blown into little tiny bits.
Important note here: she's shot this thing with a harpoon. She cut its tentacle off. This thing does not have acid blood.
It doesn't seem to. No, that is correct.
This fully grown alien creature does not seem to have acid blood, because it would, as depicted in this comic book, it would be eating through the ship right now. This is a small shuttle. It would have been already through. It's doing a lot of green bleeding in this.
Yeah, and, the panel where the door slices off the tentacle that was wrapped around her ankle, you literally see blotches of green blood splashing out from where the tentacle got cut off inside the ship. So I mean, I think it's safe to say that this version of the alien, i.e. the creature, as I've been trying to call it, the creature does not have acidic blood like the face hugger does.
I agree with that. What's lastly interesting, she's settling in for her hypersleep. She's got the cat. She's got the head of the space jockey. She calls it Uric again. She's taken that as proof so she can show people, hey, there's aliens out there. So like that's why I'm lost on the shuttle, and I blew up the ship. You know.
Mm-hmm.
She says that she'll make it back to the colonies. She should be to the frontier in another 250 years.
Yeah, I notated that too.
Yeah, 250 years. That's a long time.
Yeah,
right?
it's a real fucking long time, dog.
Yeah, but I guess if she'll be in hypersleep that entire time, it won't really matter. She doesn't seem concerned about it. It seems pretty standard. But this means they were in like deep, deep space, right? Like they were.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe it would take that long to get to like Neptune. I'm a dummy. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Maybe in the future, space travel is possible. It's just real slow, right?
Could be. You never know.
Yeah, you can't travel at the speed of light. You just travel.
Yeah.
She's up there. She's going like 30 miles an hour, right? She's just at the moon.
That's right.
You know?
Exactly.
God, hell of a trip back. 250 years, I'll get home.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's
how it ends.
It.
That's how it ends.
Now, here's an interesting thought experiment.
All right.
This is a different ship name.
Uh-huh.
This is all different character names.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a named LV-426, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they do say it is in Zeta 2 Reticuli, but they don't go any more specific than that. So.
Okay. So we don't know. So it's presumably, as we've seen it, it's not LV-426 or LV-223. We do know that there's a third moon up there.
Mm-hmm.
And the Zeta 2 Reticuli system is large, right? There's presumably other planets and planetoids in that, right?
Yep.
This story could still exist in the alien universe. This could just be a separate, almost the same occurrence happening. This could be a different alien species that could get brought into canon.
Yeah. I mean, It would be a wild coincidence that there's two. Well, I was going to say it would be a wild coincidence that there's two different types of creatures out there that have the exact same birthing and life cycle. Then I realized that pretty much every single mammal has exactly the same one, and that's not considered strange. So
yeah, and they could go the route of the egg morphing with this creature, and that would make it distinct,
make it a little different. Yeah,
this space jockey could be like the Pepsi to the original's Coke, right? Just another species out there. I don't know, man.
I mean,
then we could get like alien versus alien, right?
Yeah, we absolutely could, because you're right. I don't think there's anything in this comic that explicitly states it couldn't be.
This could be a different engineer genetic experiment, right? This could be an early version of the ovomorph that we're getting here, which is why the molecular blood continues. Like this, like they have done enough shit in, like with the pathogen and everything in Prometheus and Covenant that you could write a story that brings this version of the monster like into the universe as a cousin or something, right?
Yeah, that would be cool, actually. Damn,
that would be kind of a fun thing to see happen. I mean, I don't know, man. I doubt it. I really doubt it's going to happen, but
yeah, I can't imagine it will.
Fun to think about. Maybe we should keep an eye out for other things. I'm wondering if there are other, like, I'm sure there's some weird ass shit in the Gibson Alien 3, right?
I'm sure there is
like,
too.
We work through novels and stuff. I'm wondering if we'll find any strange references to this. Like I know in Out of the Shadows we see another primitive alien species sort of mummified beneath the surface of a planet. Like I'm wondering if, I don't remember the description too well. Like I don't know, man. Maybe there's other hints to like these abandoned ideas out there.
We'll find out as we keep going through all of these stories, because we're going to hit all of them. So if there is a reference to them out there somewhere, we'll come across it sooner or later.
Yeah, we're going to keep going through the Alien franchise, digging for clues. But for now, Kenny, you're not feeling well, and I got to get up early in the morning. We should be going to bed.
Works for me.
Where can people find you online to give you get well soon messages of kindness and love?
I am on Twitter. My handle is at CYHOBBEZ.
And I am on Twitter at Final Neal and Instagram at Final Neal Retro. Kenny, where can people find our show?
Our website is crewexpendable.net. Our Instagram handle is at crewexpendablepod, and our Twitter is at crewexpendapod.
we both recommend you go out and get yourself a copy of Alien, the original screenplay, and read it and enjoy this alternate version of the events of Alien. I don't think it's an improvement. It is a fun alternate what if story to read.
Yeah, I liked the comic. I thought it was fun. I liked this alternate take on it. I still think the movie ultimately is better, but it was fun to see what could have been,
100%. Yes. So, crew, go check the book out for yourselves. And until next time, stay frosty.